We are recording and we are on Facebook Live here. I wanted just to kind of bring to everyone's attention how this is going to work. Basically, I'm going to be open for any questions that anyone has regarding anything. So again, this is basically all right. I think I was okay. I think I was muted. So again, I want to welcome everyone. This is the Facebook Live. So we are going to be here for the next hour, or actually the next 50 minutes. And we are recording right now. I'll be taking questions. So anything that anyone has about this, feel free to jump in. And I'll just keep unmuting, or I keep letting people in. But this is Facebook Live. I'm going to go over a bunch of stuff. But again, this is open up to any questions. You could either ask me through your chat box. You could ask me through unmute your microphone, but that is going to be kind of what we're going to do. Hang on a second, lost the video there. And yeah, like I said, we are being recorded. So you'll all have access to this recording and all the stuff that I share with you. Aside from being on Hellwig, we will upload it into your Pearl link as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen here. And before I do, just to kind of give everyone a little update on stuff. All right. So coming up on September 20th, we've got our first annual, or our annual virtual conference, which basically our owner, this World Changers, Dr. Pam, she's going to be involved going over some stuff, a lot of stuff that would be needed to pass the NCE and the CPCE. So I want to definitely encourage anyone who, has that weekend, has that Saturday open to join in. I'm actually going to put a link to the sign up sheet, or the direct link in the chat box for anyone who is interested. Definitely want to recommend that. Aside from her being there, I'll be there. We'll have several of our coaches there as well. So basically, we'll have a huge gathering of a lot of information and in great breakout groups. So again, here it is. So I'm going to put in the chat, like I said, put this in the chat box. And there we go. So it's in the chat box now. Also, before I forget, I'm going to put in the chat box for anyone. I'm Coach Jeremy, and I also do I do individual counsel or individual sessions as well. So I put some promo code links in the chat box as well for anyone who is interested. And like I said, we're going to go over a bunch of stuff, and I'm just going to kind of, if people don't speak up or say anything, I'll just go over what I hear as far as what is the most popular, as far as the most demanding on this exam. And basically, when we talk about picking our battles, helping relations, still the front runner as far as what is, the heavy hitter on this exam. So of course, and careers, ethics, groups, those seem to be the ones that are up there, and it's been consistent for the last 5-6 years. So that will be what we will focus on but again, like I said, I will monitor that chat box. So you can either talk in the microphone, you can either chat me privately in the group, however you want to reach out. But I will go ahead and dive into it. Again, let's just kind of jump into some of the areas. And I think that one of the biggest guys that's, in this exam is still Rogers. Person-centered. Okay, we got a question. So someone just asked, is there a good app to use? As far as multiple choice, well, I would think that the Hellwig book, obviously, that's a great one, which is kind of where I'm coming from. To be honest with you, when it comes to the resources, basically they're all from the same information. I don't think there is a specific formula that is better or worse than the other, but I think that, there's, going through as many as you can. And I think that Helwig is obviously kind of gives you the base and the nuts and bolts of what's most important. But, um, so, but yeah, but speaking of Helwig, we got Rogers person-centered, and this is a humanistic approach to counseling. Basically, this is a you don't come in for a diagnosis prescription. This is about you and I. We're going to figure this out together. Unconditional positive regard. When I think of this, that's the first thing that I think of. Unconditional positive regard, empathy. I get what you feel. I'm not going to cry with you. Um, but I'm gonna. So somebody's saying that the print is small. All right. Let me go ahead and I just unshared it. Was it other people? Is it small for other people too, or is some? Okay, it was okay. No problem. Glad somebody said something. I will share it in a different way. All right. Is that better? Uh, or is that thumbs up if it's better, thumbs down if it's
No,
worse, or
it's the same.
it's
It's really
okay.
small.
All right. Let me see if I can try to make it. All right. I'll try to make it bigger though. I'll stretch it like this. Can you see this? Did I just make the text better? Okay, I'll do that. All right. So basically, it's about keywords like unconditional positive regard, congruence. What I'm saying and doing is matching up, and I'm being real. I'm not putting on a facade. Um, and I'm being genuine, and that's kind of what that's about. So again, humanistic approach, Carl Rogers, person-centered. And I always tell people, if you forget, look at the name, because sometimes the name, person-centered, the client is a center of this counseling process. He's a big guy. Now, probably the biggest, the broadest of the theories of the theorist are CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Because when you think about it, why is anyone in therapy to begin with? Because of how they're thinking. So we got to, fix that negative thinking. And as you see, we got a full army of people that prescribe to CBT. And that is basically kind of how that goes. Aaron Beck might be the biggest one, but again, we got a full army of people, and it's about that negative, stinking thinking, like jumping to conclusions, catastrophizing, blaming, overgeneralizing. So we got to replace some of those negative thoughts with constructive type thoughts. Again, that is CBT. And one of these guys that you see here, Albert Ellis, I always like to jump from CBT to REBT because very similar, again, negative thinking, but it's specific in the standpoint that it's actually called crooked thinking. So crooked thinking, and keep in mind, actually, that didn't look good. All right, crooked thinking. So, and it also follows this approach, this technique called the ABCDE approach. And almost like in life, when you have a domino effect happen, this happens and this happens and this happens. So what happened? I'm telling myself this negative self-talk, which is making me feel bad. So I got to dispute that with positive self-talk so I feel better. So I'm just kind of pushing that domino in a different direction. Albert Ellis is the guy. So again, it's similar, but specific. Gestalt. Just like this, now we've gone to an experimental type of therapy. So with Gestalt, keep in mind, this is about the here and now and unfinished business. So we're dealing with the unfinished business, the baggage, to focus on the present, the here and now. And this technique, the most famous technique, anyone have an idea what that is? If you want to chat in the chat box, or
Is that the empty chair?
it is absolutely, yes, it is the empty chair. Very, very good. So excellent. So that deserves definitely a applause. So basically, like when you think about this, is that client comes in, if he's remorse, if he had an argument with his significant other who drove recklessly into a tree and died. Client's remorse, guilt, that he's a mess. So if I'm a Gestalt counselor, just to be perfect, client, stand up, face that empty chair, pretend fiance is in there, and apologize, get off your chest, everything that's just destroying you so you can move on. Exactly. Fritz Perls, Gestalt. Psychoanalytic, psychodynamic. Freud. Id, ego, superego, kind of like that good angel and bad devil, where you are the one in the middle who the ego making the decision of how you're gonna deal with this stuff. That is psychoanalytic, psychodynamic. You talk about the psycho. Oh, yeah, try to make it bigger. Yeah, the psychosexual stages, the oral, anal. That okay. Actually, let me go back here to the id, ego, superego, because somebody said that was small. So there you go. Id, ego, superego. Now make this one big. Freud, psychosexual stages. Oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. And the phallic, that big power stage. Two terms in there. Oedipus complex and Electra. Oedipus, mother to son relationship. Electra, father to daughter. And the one thing that is not going anywhere with Freud are these defense mechanisms. These are some of the more popular ones, the more famous ones. And some of them are in the name itself, like denial, flat out refusal. I don't have a problem. You're all crazy. Like a lot of times in substance abuse. And then some of them are not projection, or they kind of are projection. I'm projecting my feelings onto you. If I think that you dislike me, it'll be easier to dislike you. Displacement, satisfying an impulse with a substitute object, generally in a socially unacceptable way. So I had a bad day at work, go home and take the cat and throw it against the fridge. If I, punch out my boss, that wouldn't probably work out as well for me. Then there's sublimation, when you satisfy the impulse with a substitute object in a socially acceptable way. So go to the gym after a bad day at work, work out. And then, of course, regression, moving backwards in time or in psychological time when faced with distress. So a 90-year-old might take off his shirt and run on the beach like a 20-year-old. 40-year-old would play video games like a 16-year-old, and a 16-year-old could wear diapers like a 2-week-old. So wherever you are, you're going backwards. Just like if you were to do anything that in life that would be regressing, you'd be going backwards. And then, of course, repression and suppression. I'm going to make this bigger because I always like to talk about these at the same time because they're kind of similar. Or, well, they're not kind of similar, but they're from the same family of memories being pushed out either automatically, subconsciously, which is repression, versus suppression when it's pushed out. The memories are consciously pushed out. So almost like in a denial sense. I don't want to talk about it. Where in repression, it's more, you're kind of drifted away from it, basically. And then one of my favorites is reaction formation, displaying the opposite of how you feel. I think of this as like if you in third grade, if you're sixth grade, if you have a crush on somebody, you're going to probably be rude to them. So again, however you feel, you're acting the opposite way towards somebody. And then the one that's probably the most famous because it appears both in this and in ethics, transference and countertransference. So again, in transference, that client is thinking about, is feeling the emotion towards the counselor. So counter, it's the counselor feeling it towards the client. All right. So Freud. Existential.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
Can you
Wait,
go back to that last PowerPoint slide you were just in,
for
please?
Freud, for psychoanalytic psychodynamic?
Yes.
Yeah.
You were talking about repression and suppression.
Yep.
I struggle with that sometimes. I wanted you to bring that back up,
Absolutely. Yeah.
please.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I don't know why. Hang on a second. I went to Rogers there, but let me go back to. All right. So perfect. Glad you asked. Make this bigger. All right. So basically, I always like to go now. The suppression, that is almost like denial, and the key here is it's Sharita, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The key here is it's consciously. So almost like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about that. So if I say that to you, I'm actually, in my own, I'm in my element, making the conscious decision to refuse to go there. Where in repression, it's not me who's making that, I'm almost, because normally it would be because it was a very traumatic, a very, whether that be a victim or a witness to a major crime, very scary situation, that it almost kind of takes me away from it. And I say it, meaning whether it's a spiritual sense, whether it's just, almost blackout sense, but I'm not making that decision to go to look the other way.
Oh, okay. I got you now. Okay, because
Yeah.
when you said take me away, I was a little confused, but now I got it. Okay.
Right.
All
Gotcha.
right.
Thank you, but yeah, glad
Is
we
that
clear.
the one that's automatic, Jeremy?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. Automate, yeah, exactly. Automatic and subconsciously, where, if it was suppression, and I always say it's consciously denial, refusal, almost like I kind of go back to the denial one where I don't have a problem. You're all crazy. Now, I may be lying, but I'm actually making the conscious decision to do that. So where I would basically, if you bring up something that happened in the past, I don't want to talk about it. Well, that statement is based on I'm making the conscious decision to not go there. Whereas opposed to like, wait, what happened? What happened 20 years ago? You know, if I knew, and assuming that if I knew about it 20 seconds ago. Yeah. So there you go. But good questions. Yeah, feel free to definitely throw a red flag or a red light if we're going too quickly. Existential. This is one of the ones that's it started with this guy, Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called The Man's Search for Meaning. And basically, this is the idea that, he was a prisoner at a concentration camp. And the idea is even when it's the worst, lowest form of humanity, closest to death, you can still see light at the end of the tunnel, long-term goals, installation of hope, and be independent and responsible. So, obviously the idea is it needs something to live for if it's that bad. And, now it's almost like viewed as like Tony Robbins therapy, where you, go to a seminar and you walk out feeling like you could take on the world. But this is basically, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's where this is. Again, focusing on, being the best version of yourself as possible. Self-actualization. And that is existential. All right. Individual psychology, Adlerian, Alfred Adler. This is the idea that, again, I always go back to what is the name of it? Individual. So it's the uniqueness of the individual. History, everything about you, your spirituals, short-term goals, and basically what makes you unique in all aspects. And one of the things that, according to Adler, that makes you unique is where you are in your sibling pecking order, the birth order. Are you the oldest, the middle, the youngest, or the only child? Because that has a determination of how you end up in, your level of intelligence, maturity, all that stuff. So when you think of, just like when you think of Gestalt, the first thing that comes to mind is empty chair. When I think of Rogers, the first thing that comes to mind is unconditional positive regard. When I think of Adlerian, the first thing that comes to mind is birth order. Now, it shouldn't be the only thing that comes to mind, but that's the first thing. Other things that come to mind is,
Can I ask a question?
please, yeah.
Why is that the first thing that come to your mind?
Well, it's just because it's like, in other words, Gestalt, and I say these are some of the famous things, almost like, well, what they coined, basically, I mean, just like, people who do famous things in life where they did other things in life, but what made them most famous based on what they're famous for is what they invented, what they coined, the book that they wrote, again, like I said, there's other things, but there's no one else that does what this person does. I mean, obviously other things we're going to go over. They did homework assignments, but Adler does birth order. No one else does. So on the exam, if you get birth order, you should be thinking it's Adler because it can't be anyone else. Again, paradoxical intentions. Other theories do that as well. But this is kind of one of the homework assignments where you're basically prescribing the opposite. So if the issue that you're in therapy is because of social anxiety, when you do a presentation, you bite your fingernails. If I'm Adler, doing Adlerian, I say, next presentation, I want you to look up the clock and bite your fingernails. Huh? Yeah, you heard me. And what's he going to do? Wait, what am I doing? That's it. So there you go. So Adlerian. All right. TA. Transactional analysis. Eric Burney. This is the idea that life scripts, and these are 3 ego states, making these big right here. And these are called, this is the idea that in this life script, we do better communicating with people in our own wheelhouse. Parents do better with parents, adults to adults, and child to child. Those are called complementary transactions. But when we go this way, parents to child, that doesn't work out as well. Those are called cross transactions. So that is Eric Burney. And he wrote a book called The Games People Play. Nothing substantial about that, just knowing that because he's a big guy, it's not out of question to think that they couldn't ask that. So again, Eric Burney, complementary and cross transactions, and the 3 ego states: parents, adults, and child. All right. DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Anyone want to take a stab of why this was created? This is one of the ones that people always like, well, what would you use this for? Well, this is one that was created for something specific. Anyone have any
Eating
idea?
disorders.
It wasn't created for that. It could be used for that, but it was created. Yes,
That mind.
Oh, sorry, wrong. I meant to give you a round of applause. Not a wow. Good job. Yes, it was created for borderline. Marsha Linehan. She created for borderlines, but it could be used. Yes, it could be used for eating disorders. So that deserves an applause too. But basically, it deals with maladaptive thinking, and this is a type of therapy that relies on one of these 4 techniques. Mindfulness, again, and this basically aligns perfectly with the borderline, being aware of the present moment, not being judged, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. Again, those are 3 techniques. Maladaptive thinking, absolutely. Eating disorders, that includes that. But it was created for borderline. So to kind of like to piggyback on what I mentioned earlier about, kind of matching certain things on the exam, if you get a question about a borderline, the first thing I'm thinking is DBT an option? Because DBT was created for borderline. So if it was eating disorder, DBT could also be an option, but just keep that in mind. And again, 4 techniques. All right. Speaking of techniques, solution-focused brief therapy has 3 there's 3 questions. And again, the name, solution-focused brief. So brief, short term, and solution, why are you in my office? What are you trying to accomplish? We're going basically right for the end all be all. And to accomplish that, 3 questions. The most famous is probably the miracle question. If I could free you of your anxiety with my magic wand, what would that be like? And the exception question, what if you didn't have anxiety? And the scaling question, okay, so how bad are you, would you say? Scale of 1 to 10. 8? Okay, what if we got down to a 6? Again, solution focused, brief. And there's a time and a place for all these, but you're probably not going to fix a sociopathic serial killer in a couple weeks, a couple sessions. So, there's a time and a place for one, there's a time and a place for not one. So solution focused. And again, people a lot of times are like, well, who was it? Well, they didn't in Hellwig, they don't even reference anybody. So I always feel like that's kind of an overrated thing where they're like, well, who should I connect that with? Because like CBT, there's a whole army of people. All right. Reality therapy. Going back to what I was saying before, look at the name, reality. And I think of get real. I think of, based on obviously choice, it's based on choice therapy, taking responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yes, exactly. And not even so much what is, but what it's not. It's rejecting the transference. That's a Freud term. Like I don't care about your unconscious beliefs. I don't care about what happened in your past. Adlerian, that would be history. We don't care about that. I don't even care what your symptoms are. Basically, the fact that you're alive in my office, you have the ability to make changes. So stop making excuses, stop blaming others, go out there and make something of your life, basically. A very, very cutthroat, if you will. I think of somebody who might be just lazy or somebody that, maybe if they're a bad choice away from a relapse, we may actually not have time to talk about what got them here because their funeral could be before our next session. So time and a place for this, but this is like slap in the face type reality. Again, get real, reality check. So again, this is not like the Rogers where I almost think of, the grandfather who's has his grandson on his, knee and just kind of saying, we're going to get this figure out together. No. So again, reality. All right. Narrative. Again, like I said, I always go back to, if you ever forget, look at the name. When I hear the word narrative, I think of the library. I think of books. So I think of stories. If you're at a library, you're looking for a book of a story. And if you're in therapy, you're going to bring to the counselor's office a sob story. You're not going to come in with a happy story. So if you're coming with a sob story and it's a narrative therapist, you're going to help the client reauthor, not rewrite, but reauthor the story. So how do we do that? We're not trying to change his life. We're trying to help the client look at it differently by asking questions, deconstructing it. And again, going back to like what I was saying before, another one with homework assignments, but these homework assignments are narrative homework assignments. Write a letter, write a list of pros and cons, help him, the client, let's just say the client was in a bad marriage, wife left the divorce papers, took off, client's never been alone before, and he's so sad. And I would say, let me ask you this client, how happy were you in this marriage to begin with? Not very happy. How much more free time do you have now? A lot more. Do you think that maybe she did you a favor? Huh. So again, there you go. Those are the big guys. Now, again, there's little people, but again, like I said, I think that when it comes to picking your battles on this exam, if we focus on the big people, because if you get a little person, it'll be sandwiched with other big people. And if you know who the big people are, you'll know who the big people are not. So those are the big guys. So before we move on from helping relations,
What
Any,
about multimodal,
yeah,
Lazarus?
again, yeah, multi. So again, this is one too. Uh, and again, holistic approach, again, sometimes classified as eclectic. And basically, we have 7 modalities: behaviors, affective responses, sensations, images, cognitions, interpersonal relationship, drugs, which is to signify more general biology, including nutrition, and this technique, a variety of theoretical perspectives. Uh, so again, this is, again, you're right. There are more. Um, like I said, this is probably, well, I'm not going to dismiss it, but as far as going, I think we've hit on the heaviest ones. So again, Lazarus, that definitely is one of them. And then, of course, Margaret Mailer, object relations based on the psychoanalytic concept, and basically dealing with the fusion with mother, symbiosis, separation, individuation, and constancy of self or object. So again, yeah, there definitely are other ones too. So there you go. All right. Let me see any questions that anyone has. All right, so I'm going to jump, because no one's asking anything, I'm going to jump into groups, which is another big one. And with groups, it always starts with the stages of groups, always. And I always tell people, just based on what you would expect from somebody who's going into a group, what you would do. And first thing, you would drive to the group, you would go there, you would park your car, walk inside, pay the fee, sign the informed consent, and room 212 to the right. You're forming, you're getting there. And then once you're there, get to work. Well, keep in mind, there's a reason they're in group to begin with. And typically, they're probably going to be more likely in the earlier stages, all together, are probably going to want to kill each other and be at each other's heads. And that hence the name storming. When it storms outside, typically people don't associate that with tranquility and peace. It's not good. But we shift to the norming stage, where things normalize and people start to learn how to work together. They develop cohesiveness, a universality, that belief where, wow, we're actually not as different as we thought we were. And almost that idea where if you have 2 enemies at the bottom of a hill, even if they as much as they dislike each other, they say, you know what, let's just work together until we get up top, and then we'll kill each other at the top of the hill. And what happens? Once they actually become friends on the way up, and now that we're friends, we start performing, results oriented. And then after that, so long, bring on the next group. Forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. Tuckman. And then, of course, there's also another guy named Corey, and he has a few different names for them, but they mean the same thing. What Tuckman calls the storming, Corey calls the transition. And typically in life, when you go through a life transition, it's kind of stressful. And then he also calls what Tuckman calls the norming, Corey calls it the working. And then there's also, Corey has a few other pre and post stages. So it's called the initial orientation pre-group. What are we going to do with these kids today? Which obviously would take place before the group starts. And then the evaluation follow-up, like a survey, which obviously would take place after the group's over. And then curative factors. Group skills, group terms, altruism, the concern that one group member has for another. And so kind of going to this idea how important these stages of groups are, they can not only, they can ask you what would happen in which group. And, early in the stages, let's say a group member's sick, doesn't show up. In the early stages, I hope he never comes back. But now, in the second half of group and in the norming, he hasn't been here in 2 weeks. I'm worried about him. Again, I mentioned universality. Wow, we all share some of the same, we're not as different. Catharsis, releasing of emotion, and then some helping relations terms, as you see. Now, while there are group member terms, there's group leader terms. Linking. Isn't it interesting how what this person was experiencing with group is the same as what this person was experiencing? Interpreting, questioning, supporting, blocking, confronting, you're pointing out discrepancies. And again, you see there's all, helping relations always kind of finds its way into everything. And then of course, so that is so those are some, and of course, a few terms that we got to know: scapegoating, like ganging up, on someone. It's his fault. This is a disaster. Group norms. Anyone know what that means? It's a one-word answer. Anyone have any idea what group norms means? It means rules, basically. Oh, someone's going to try.
I'm sorry. I was trying to say rules.
Oh, you were going to say it? Okay. All right. Well, I try. I think I could read through it. So I didn't read. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Rules. Basically, that's all it means. Also, some types of, there aren't that many people in the groups, but one of the theorists is Jacob Marino. Psychodrama. And when you think of drama, obviously you're thinking of, and this could be like in family therapy, a reenactment. Basically we got problems, client, I got a problem. Every time I come home, wife gets angry, dishes aren't done, son goes crazy, daughter starts acting out. All right, you be his wife, you be his son, you be his daughter. I'm the director, ready, cut. Basically just like you would do like a cast. Reenactment. Also, there's the primary, secondary, and tertiary type groups that we got to know. So primary, P, prevent. You're preventing something by, let's say, if a second grade classroom, a DUI lecture hall assembly, so to speak. So second graders, we're trying to beat in their heads to not drink and drive, because the key is they haven't done it yet. So that is a preventative group. Typically, it's with a younger crowd. Secondary, we're trying to push them back on the straight and narrow. So let's say high school dance, kids get busted for smoking marijuana in the bathroom, assuming that this is their first time at it. Let's just assume that. The key here is to push them back on the straight and narrow before they develop bad habits, before they become addicts, before they make more bad choices. Because once they're in full relapse, once they've full-blown addiction, it's tertiary, where now it's picking up the broken pieces. So there you go. Also, outcome and process type groups. So basically when I think of outcome, I think of end results. How much money did you make? What are your symptoms? What are your lower symptoms? Who lost the most weight? Who has the most muscle mass? Who has that's outcome results, where process is you're being graded on effort and how you used your time. Outcome versus process. There you go. All right. So as far as groups, and of course, this is always a big thing when it comes to groups. Let me actually pull this guy up here. Open versus closed group. So basically, a closed group, we have these 8 people that we are going to have in a group that starts on October 1st and will end on December 20th. Once we start, we're not letting anyone else in. We obviously would rather not leave, but we're not going to handcuff them to the chair. I mean, so if they leave, it's a disruption, but it is what it is. But we can control that we lock it from the inside, that people don't come in. Open, once we start, people are going to be, people are coming and going freely. yeah, so, and we decide to shut it down whenever we decide to shut it down. So there, that is the difference. But we screen for all group members. So even an open group, and actually I'm going to share this, I'm going to go back to the Helligs, and I'm going to share just the Hellig book. So basically, even an open group, there may be a reason, there's a time and a place where somebody may not be suited for it. If it's a grief group and they lost their significant other 2 hours ago, maybe not the best for that person. But again, there's also advantages and disadvantages to groups. Obviously, the big advantage is cost, economic, as it helps, is good for both sides. From the clients, because obviously the group doesn't cost as much as it would be an individual one-on-one. And even though it doesn't cost as much, from a counselor and agency perspective, they're able to have a bunch of people in that session, so they can actually bank on it as well. So it's a economic boost for both parties. However, there are the disadvantages. The biggest one is, of course, is confidentiality. Yes, we're going to do the informed consent, but everyone, all group members could definitely go home at night and say to their significant others, would you believe what this clown did today? Ideally, we'd rather than not do that, but you're not going to follow them back. And, so that's something that you're free to say what you want, but you definitely take the risk of it not being held in confidence. So there you go. And then I always want to make sure that, to kind of, there seems to be a lot of overwhelmingness when it comes to groups, based on the fact that people think, oh, I went a little carried away. One of the types of groups is, they're, oh, how do I get it? All right. So like they say there's person-centered groups, there's Gestalt groups, there's TA groups, but the only difference is, from what we talked about in helping relations, it's in a group context. That's the only difference. So all this verbiage and pages of these types of groups, if you know them from the helping relations, then you're set. Only difference, it's in a group. That's all the only difference. So there you go. So it kind of makes the material not seem quite as daunting.
Can you explain that again? I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
So basically, can you see this here? These type of groups where we
Yes.
got person-centered groups,
Mm-hmm.
Gestalt groups. Now, those are all helping relations theorist terms, and basically, there's no difference as they were in the helping relations section. The only difference is in this section is that they're in a group context. So you're using the same terms, the same concepts, the same ideas, the same people, whether it's birth order and Adlerian, whether that's empty chair Gestalt. But the only difference is it's in a group context. There's more than one person in it. So
Thank you.
yeah, there you go. So that's kind of, people are like, oh, there's so much material. Yeah, but a lot of this is repeated. Like I mentioned when we first started, the transference and countertransference, as we saw in Freud. There's a lot of that in ethics too. So that is kind of how that goes. So we got a few minutes left here. Any questions? Can we get a copy? Yeah. Also, yeah. So copy these pages for groups. Yeah. So the pages. Well, first of all, this Hellig book is where all this is coming from. The pictures are all basically they're in there too. But yes, I think everyone here is part of the Pearl. If you have accounts on Pearl, and all of them will either get sent to you. We have everyone's contact who's in here. So if you can just email or the administrator, but I'll let them know that to notify, everyone will get the information as well. And of course, this is getting recorded this will be on the recorded Pearl thing as well. So yeah, everyone will get this. Absolutely.
Can you put the name of the book and the author in the chat?
Helwig, yes, no, let's see, can I do that? Hang on a sec, let's see, yeah, I can do that. Let's see here. In fact, let's do this. I'm actually gonna put, so that way, if I can even get it, so yeah, we don't have to even wait until you guys get the email, but I will, yeah, if you don't get the email, just email us and we'll to the Dr. Pam site, say you were on this Facebook Live with Jeremy, and we'll get it to you, but I'm actually gonna put in the chat box right now. Let's see here. So if it lets me, unless it's too big, let's see. All right, so all right, looks like it's loading. So there you go. There's Helwig. Yep. So there you go. Yep, that's all the text. All right. But yeah, and any other questions while we're all still here? All right. Okay, yeah. So like I said, we went through yeah, we'll definitely we'll get everyone's well, I put it oh, so did I not I thought Katrina I just put in the chat box. Did I put it did I accidentally send to just one person? Does everyone see in the chat box the Helwig book? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I sent to everybody, yeah. So so just you can download like a PDF. Yeah, it's yeah. So like I said, as far as you know, this is concerned, yeah, I think that we hit the two heavy hitters today. And like I said, you know, we'll get everyone's information. And if you don't get it, just email the admin team, the Dr. Pam email address, and we will get you that stuff as well. But yeah, this recording will be available. So, but yeah, but I'm actually gonna unrecord it right now for anyone who has a question that does not want to be forever engraved on this. So stop recording.